We have a place to hang out. To make do. Okay, I'd like to call a meeting to order. Please stand and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everybody. Nice to see everyone here tonight. Glad you could join us. And one way to get good information firsthand, attend the board meeting. And just for your information, most of you know now, but if you don't and aren't here and are interested in following our meetings, we are now streamed, so you could always go to the school website or YouTube and pull up the monthly board meetings and get your information or updates that way. So glad to see you here tonight. Roll call. Those in attendance, please. And next is approval of the agenda. I do not know of any additions, changes, so with that, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Scott, second by Tammy. Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We will move to Mustang Spirit Recognition. Who's going first? Okay, Sparks.
We wanted to recognize, we wanted to recognize Fred
Excuse
Fox.
me, I guess this applies to you too. We have a request from our tech person, from Tim. Anybody
Teacher voice.
speaking?
Really loudly.
The mic doesn't hear you.
It doesn't
It will-
amplify
okay.
anything.
It
It's
will-
only for recording for the.
It's for online, it's
What do you
for
want?
the video. Use this,
Just hold it.
please.
Okay.
Yeah, and yeah, make sure it's on, Brenda. Tim will tell you if
Tap
it's
right
not.
there.
On? Am I on? Okay. We wanted to recognize Fred Fox, although Grandpa Fred is what we call him and everyone in the school calls him. So if you want to stand up here, how about you scooch you over here a little bit? He came to, and I'm going to say work, he's volunteering, but he works when he comes to the school. He started November 19th of last year. He works Monday through Thursday from the beginning of school to when the kids get out, mostly in the first grade hallway. Now his background is he did 23 years of Sunday school first grade, right?
First grade, 23 years ago.
Yep.
Yeah, it was all Sunday school.
And then 30 years at Hemping Tech teaching electronics.
All basic electronics for 30 years.
Right.
Teaching.
So, but now he is in our hallways, he's tutoring kids, he supports the teachers in numerous ways, of projects, of copying, making books.
Yeah, the copy machine and I are real good.
There you go.
I know 8 places it can jam.
Well, and so there's
Slam.
many cute stories about Grandpa Fred and the kids, and one is a teacher's going to go out on maternity leave. So then one child in the classroom was very happy because Grandpa Fred was going to get to be their substitute teacher. And so he's in the classrooms all the time too. So I'm thrilled to have him up there. He's a great mentor. He's a great support system for us. We get to say hi every day. Just a pleasure to have him around the school. So thank you very much for what you do.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm going to say, if you when you volunteer, the best way you can show your appreciation is double my pay.
Done.
Still zero, still zero.
Although we did give him a little gift certificate. Lunch is on us.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All worthwhile.
Love your kids.
More hugs and high fives.
Thanks, Fred, and
Double your
hopefully, I
pay.
think it's safe to say you considered it a win-win when you decided to, yeah. Thank you.
All right, I think I'm next. So my person I thought was going to be here, and I don't see her, but I'd like to recognize the whole social studies department and Ms. Whitbread. And the reason I want to recognize them is because right before, this is a 5-person department. We do have one social studies department member here, Ms. Ennis. Right before school started, the 5-person department went down to 4. And that's because someone had a health scare. So we had a substitute come in and fill in, and that person's been there for a few weeks now. That person doesn't have a background in social studies. But what this department did is they pulled together and really supported that person with lesson planning and organization and the technology stuff. They were the go-between between the teacher who's out and the sub, and we haven't really missed a beat. So I really want to thank the social studies department. I want to thank Ms. Whitbread, especially because she took it upon herself, and she was excited to do this, to take one of the upper level elective courses, World War II. There's a lot to that. It's not something that's maybe as easy as geography, and she was happy to do that for 2 weeks. Also, Joy's positivity is really contagious in our building. She's, just a couple days ago, I saw her up in the hallway, and she knows all the 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, and she teases them, and she smiles and says their name and makes them feel really good. So really glad that we have Ms. Whitbread and the social studies department. Thanks.
Great. Thanks. Thanks, Brent. Can it stay on?
Open forum.
Get any
Right.
feedback? All right. Any other Mustang spirits? Seeing none, then we will move into our first open forum. And a number of people here to address the board. Couple things, please, yes, use the microphone. It helps with our online transmission. And also, we have a number tonight wanting to make public comments. So if you would be courteous enough to try to be concise, keep it to 3 minutes max, that would be nice. If there is any redundancy or any 2 people that are speaking to the same topic, maybe we can tag team or eliminate or save some time that way if you're speaking to the same subject matter. Otherwise, we're flexible, so just within reason. So I'll call on Patty Miller first.
Whoever is here with the hockey stuff, feel free to come with, because we just,
Right over
Right
there.
there.
So I'm here on behalf of Mora. There's other people here that are, have been players in our youth hockey program, our girls hockey program specifically. And so being on the mayor board, I know I've talked to Chris Osterdyke and Charlie Whitbread. We've all had conversations about the idea of co-oping with Pine City to have a girls team at the high school level, which currently we have one at the high school level in Cambridge. And so our youth program has been working with their youth program and trying to get that collaboration going back and forth. So we have that right now with some of our teams. And really it's for the benefit of the girls, because we never really have enough girls to make a full team. And while they have more girls than we do, I think the numbers show that throughout the next few years, they'll kind of go up and down, and together we can be a stronger entity. So that's on the youth side of things, and I just wanted to point that out to the board so that you know you have some base for kind of what I think Chris has maybe talked to the Pine City AD about co-oping at the high school level. So I know that the youth piece doesn't really have anything to do with the school, but just so you know and have kind of a base knowledge of that. And then there's some parents here that have girls that are currently playing high school hockey in the co-op with Cambridge Isani, and they had some concerns I know that they wanted to address too. And then if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them here or some other place. You most of you know how to get a hold of me.
Okay. And
So I'll let these guys.
maybe, yeah, so we have less confusion. Forgive me if I'm taking people out of order that they signed up to speak, but why don't we cover hockey first? Anybody that's here to address hockey?
Okay, so do you-
Continue.
Okay, so I don't know who wants to speak.
Just
Oh,
maybe
Ben.
give us your name and just reiterate that you're with hockey or what you're here for.
So I'll pass it down to the people that have the girls in the high school program right now.
Okay. And if you would not mind, give us your name, please.
Hi, my name is Lori Millam, and Jordan has been playing with the girls' team for the last 7 years. There are still girls actively playing. They're going to be seniors in the following year. And so when they first started talking about dissolving the co-op, we thought that the program was going to be going through. There is a big gap of girls. And my understanding is there's nobody beyond next year that would be playing other than our girls that are already playing now. There are 2 7th graders, I think, playing 12U this year, and then I think there's 5 6th graders playing 12U. Our ask is that we wait 1 year before we consider dissolving the program so that the girls that are playing now can continue playing with their team that they've played with for the last 7 years. So I don't know all the logistics behind it on that end, but that is our big. I don't know, Kurt, do you want to say anything?
Well, Kayla Caswell said the same thing. She has played with these girls for 8 years, not 7. We beat you out by a year, but she's played with them for 8 years, and you know, you hear a lot of stuff in the hockey organizations, and a lot of they're not being fair. They're not letting the girls play down there. They're, you know, all this stuff, and she loves it down there. Not that she wouldn't love it somewhere else, but she said, you know, she had very fair play down there. They have their own locker down there. Don't have to travel back and forth with the stuff. I know one of the concerns from some people is the early morning practices down there. They dissolved everyone except 1 last year, or 2?
I think we had 2.
2. It's, you know, when my niece played, I don't know what age Taylor is, it was every morning at like 3 or 4 a.m. and I would have made Kayla quit. But there's 1 or 2 down there. It's a great co-op. They've been together forever, and I know Kayla said she probably will quit if it goes to Pine City, and I said, you know, you'll think about it. But anyways, we are for keeping it for 1 more year. And what you were saying, it's not really going to affect because there's nobody moving up for that 1 year anyways, except Kayla and Jordan. So I really think it should stay at least 1 more year.
Thank you.
Sure. So one thing I want to say is there's been a lot of talk about how the girls don't really like playing for Cambridge, and that's just not true. We love it down there. The coaches are fair, they always have been, and there's never really any favoritism shown, especially for the girls that we're playing now with our new coaches. We have a new coach coming in this year. She's got new motives, new ideals, and she has a whole new set of beliefs that she's trying to pass on to this team, and it's a lot different than it was 4 or 5 years ago.
I'll just say one more thing. They have had talk in the past, whoever was running the program prior to our girls, it was very, I will say, one-sided with ice time and everything down there. They have been talking and having open discussion with being able to try to get more games down this direction. I can't promise anything on that, but they are open to that. This is a whole new direction that they've had up there. And so, again, we're only asking for 1 more year for our girls. That's really all. They're on that. I'm a big believer. I served on the Mora. I was the girls coordinator for the Mora Youth Association for 2 years. I actually was the one that helped instigate all of the communication and went to the meetings in Pine City and helped try to get that co-op together for the youth. So I'm a big believer in embracing and trying to grow the program from that end of it. But we're just simply asking for 1 more year.
Ben Sappner, I'm currently the girls coordinator for Mora hockey. One thing I will say is that my daughter has been playing for 5 years, not as long as these girls. And yes, she's on the youth side, so it's a little bit different. But since she's been playing, I think they've had one high school game in Mora that I know of. And that's what we're trying to hopefully get by opening the doors over with Pine City, is an actual true co-op. I can't say that that's necessarily 100% gonna happen, but that's our long-term goal, is to have that. With that, we don't have a youth 15U girls team currently, so it could affect more than just these two girls right here. That's the unfortunate part, because the two girls that are in 7th grade move up to 8th grade next year, and potentially they could be part of that varsity program. I guess that's all I have.
I'm sorry, Ben, what age is your daughter again?
My daughter she's 11.
Okay.
So she'll be on the 12U team that we have. The co-op's going on over with Pine City right now. We started it last season. It seemed to go really well, and we have that this season as well. As far as practices and games go, it's a 50-50 co-op.
So, if we already have a youth co-op going on now, and that's going good, and we're co-oped down there, and that's going good, why can't we leave us out of it for 1 year? Is that, if it's possible, it's happening, right? I didn't even know that. I thought it was one or none.
The youth co-op?
Yeah, the youth co-op is already going on, and we're co-op down there, and that's going on. So why change it?
So,
Yeah, okay.
no, go ahead. If you want to finish, go ahead. I guess to answer that question, I guess is kind of, so the hard part is that Pine City pulled out of that co-op. We're trying to build a relationship with Pine City in hopes to get the 50-50 program going. They also need our girls. We need them as much as they need us. And for us to just kind of say, I don't think that that's necessarily fair either.
You need them at the youth level, or
both.
they need the two girls, my girl and her girl?
I would say both, to be honest with you.
Well, appreciate your feelings, your input, and I think we're hearing there's a lot to be considered. The good news is I think that we have determined that we have a little bit of time to make the decision. It's not that it has to be done by, there isn't a deadline at this point, or we're not up against the deadline if we need a little more time to, consider everything or get all the information that we need because of how it is going to affect, of course, we want to work on a positive relationship with Pine City if ultimately that's the goal. And so we'll take everything that has been said here tonight and make the best decision for the most of you, or for all of you, hopefully, and especially our juniors. And Jordan, appreciate you being here to give us the positive comments that you did too regarding the relationship that you've had, or the experience you've had down in Cambridge, Isani. That's good to hear. And so we get it, we understand where you are, and so just thanks for sharing.
You gotta go to volleyball.
You're welcome to leave. It's your run.
Thanks, guys.
All right, we will move on. Steve.
Scott.
No,
I didn't see this yet. Didn't see it, sorry.
Oh, mine's gonna be short and sweet. Hopefully I don't talk too long here. My big thing's on the referendum. One of the things I think that gets lost in it is gratitude. We have a new elementary school that I moved here in 2009. I've been here for 10 years and I've been through the referendums. And I'm appreciative of that. I know there's a lot of community members who are. test, doesn't matter, they're footing the bill. Same thing for the wellness center. I'm very appreciative of that. I'm appreciative of the neighborhood I live in. There's 13 kids. They act more like siblings and neighbors. It's awesome to see the school, from the teachers to the admin to the board, have been absolutely awesome. Nothing less than what my expectations were. The other thing is, you guys as a board, putting up with this for the past decade and working towards the new school, trying to get the new high school and not giving up on it, being fiscally responsible, exploring other options. And it's not easy, year in, year out. The Bobs and Tammy last year with the election, going through the mudslinging and all that stuff. We see it as a community. And me personally, I'm appreciative. So I just want to say thank you to you guys.
Thanks, Steve. Devin Kelling.
Thank you. If you build it, it will come. That mysterious voice wasn't telling Kevin Costner to get out of the way so Shoeless Joe could make his comeback and come visit. It was telling him that he needed to invest, work, and sacrifice so that his dreams could come true. He needed to build that field where Shoeless Joe would want to come. So it is for us here today. We need to build a community where businesses and opportunities want to come if we want those businesses and their opportunities. The state of Kansas tried a method of cutting investments and reducing taxes as low as they could in an effort to take businesses away from high-tax states. They failed miserably because of their shoddy infrastructure and their substandard workforce. Businesses do not want to move to places where they can't find the employees or have the infrastructure they need to be successful. This referendum is more than just about the health and safety of our students, but that is very important. Mora's been here since the 1880s. If we want to be around for another 140 years, we also need to invest and work and sacrifice to be a community where we can keep our best graduates and attract new talent. I applaud you for recognizing that building a new school that's centered on the 21st century economy is the best step that we can take toward that. And I thank you for your dedication and diligence on this. It's been very tough. Let's get this done. It's time.
Thank you, Devin.
Thank you.
I'll hear from Lindsay Campa.
I'm a better writer than a speaker, so I'm going to read. I might shake. My name is Lindsay. I'm a stay-at-home parent to 4 kids. They're 7, 5, 3, and 3, so they're very young. And we are new to Mora. We moved here 3 years ago. My husband is a physician at Wellia. So I just want to kind of come at this with an outsider's view. When we toured here originally, when we were looking at jobs, we looked at the area, we looked at the schools, test scores had improved, things like Kids Kingdom and the movie theater were so impressive to us, the Vassal Lopez, even though we didn't ski. Just that the community came together was so incredibly impressive to us. You know, the hospital had a new addition, and then they had another one coming. We found what we needed. We wanted a community that had a value in its people and protected its small town heritage. We grew up in a small town, we love it. Since moving here, we have sent 2 of our kids to kindergarten at Mora Elementary, which, by the way, congratulations on the public school system, we see now more than ever how important it is for our kids to have clean, comfortable, and a safe environment to learn and grow. As an outsider, I recently toured the high school for the first time, and while I was expecting to see concerns, I saw so many more. We didn't look at it at the high school when we toured because we had a 1-year-old and it just didn't make sense. But as an outsider, we saw that students, families, visitors in wheelchairs or using other assistive devices can't come in the front door. Every single day, students who are in those kinds of, wheelchair assistive device have to go in a back door, and that's how we welcome them to school. I'm gonna cry. Every single day. We rob them of their ability to walk through a front door. The safety of the front door is appalling. I know the front office does their best, but we hear too many things. It's a sad reality that we live in, and they can walk in the front door and have access to the entire school. They can be in the basement and nobody is down there and nobody knows they're there. And that's just extremely concerning. Beyond the safety and security and accessibility, maybe I'm shaking. We need to look at the general environment. Studies show that test scores increase with air quality, lighting, and environmental improvements. We want our kids to want to go to school, to stay after school and study, to be in sports, to be involved in STEM clubs, language, arts, all of the things. School gives our kids purpose, and when kids have purpose, they stay out of trouble, and they want to learn. Just a little fact finding I did recently with STEM education. 11% of new job growth in Minnesota comes from STEM occupations alone. And there are nearly 60,000 entry-level STEM positions available in Minnesota over the last 10 years. And that number keeps going up. We need to give our students access to newer technology. A quick text to our babysitter really showed me the frustration that she feels in science every day. She said, "We only have one hood vent, only some of the gas burners work. The sinks don't drain, and most of the time the faucets don't work. The lab stations are chipping, the cupboards are broken, and we have to go to different areas in the science department just to get a certain temperature of water." There are examples of this in literally every single department in the school. We need to do better. So going back to why we chose to move our family to Mora is we believe in this community. We believe that this community can come together and make things better. Our goal is to send students off into the world in pursuit of a career and a life that is fulfilling to them. I believe the school board has done their due diligence and presented us with the best option to move our kids forward. It might take a little stretching, but I think it'll pay off tenfold.
Renee. I'm sorry, I said Chrisman, right?
Chrisman, yes. Yes. Thank you. All right, so for us, I'll introduce myself, Renee Chrisman. Sorry, microphone. I'm Renee Chrisman. For us, it is a matter of, some of it has been built. We have 3 little girls. For us, it's a matter of getting to it. That is our struggle. So I'll introduce our little girls. We too are new to the area. We moved up here full-time from the cities about 2.5 years ago. So these are our little girls. Anna's our first grader. She's in Miss Pep's class. She had Mrs. Jacobson last year, and she loved the program. That was her favorite part of the year. So I recognized you right away when you came in. We have our 4-year-old who's in Miss Stacy's class right now, and then our little Willanilla Chinchilla is 3 years old, and she will be coming in a couple years to the school. So for us right now, the issue, and Ethan is probably familiar, because we went through this with our township 2 years ago, and were turned down, but this is the presentation I put together for our town tour. But we live at the end of a street in Hillman Township. The street name is Hornet Street. Our house is here. The bus stop is about a mile away for our kids. And rightfully so, the bus isn't going to come down the way the road is right now. And that is because the township will not maintain our half of the road. So we've gone to them. We did a petition a couple years ago. We're turned down. It was difficult. done that. We put roughly 100 loads of gravel on it so far, with our own money, our own expense. And we're asking for them to maintain it. The first day into it, our neighbor put a post right in the middle of it. So we're arguing that as well. We're asking for the township help to remove this person's post so that we can get to our house and have our girls safely get on and off a bus. And if ever need be, get a fire truck or an ambulance or anything else back in there. Because right now we can't do that. So right now the road is maintained to this driveway, right here. Nobody lives there. It was owned by a church when we bought the place, and we understood it was in a tax exempt place. We get it, they wouldn't wanna spend tax dollars on that. But we've owned it for 6 years and we've been paying taxes and increasing the value. So we're just looking for any help we can possibly get. We've added, like I said, we added the loads of gravel, and we made a turnaround right here, so that a bus can come up there and turn around. And I will say, the school has been extremely supportive in all of this. I've had a lot of conversations with Dale, I've had a few conversations with Chip. They've been fantastic, so we appreciate the school's help with all this. The intent being that instead of a mile away, our girls can be less than a quarter mile from us, and I can have eyes on them as they get on and off the bus. And they're not walking to a busy highway in the dark at 30 below in a Mora school. 10 below, we'll say. So that's what we're asking for. If there's any help we can get from the school, and you guys have already been supportive and agreed that you can come down there. And actually, I was like whipping circles before I came out here, because we had the turnaround like almost complete today. So if the school wants to come out and check it out and see if they're willing to come down there and turn around, we're interested to see if a bus can turn around, because we made it big enough so that it can. It's like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And we've also done so much homework on Minnesota statutes for town roads. Like, I'm considering taking the bar exam. Because they can be found. There is actually a statute out there that says, one of the things they argued was, well, we can't turn around on private property. They can charge us for that, and we're willing to do that. It's 1/10 of a mile from our property line to that turnaround, which would make it so safe for the kids. And so we're asking the township, really all from where they maintain it now, our turnaround is like 1/3 of a mile. So that's all we're asking from them at this point. We spend a ton of money, so it shouldn't need a whole lot of gravel, at least in the near future. So any help we can get from the school, or anybody who happens to know anyone on the township board, and a good word for us, the Christmas. We have 3 beautiful girls, and we're just looking out for their safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. I feel your pain, and it's the first I've heard of it, and so glad you're here, and also glad that you've been able to have some conversations or have had cooperation from our administration, and hopefully talks can continue and mutually be satisfying to everybody. And
Thank you.
we
Yeah.
love having your kids.
Thank you.
And
I'm just hoping all 3 of them don't graduate. I think it's horrible. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to the end of the requests that we have for public comment. Is there anybody here that was wanting to speak at this time? Open forum? Yes, sir. Sierra, come on in, girls.
It's on.
Hi, my name is Tom Ailes, and I'm also a new 3-year resident of the city of Mora. I live north of town out by Warman. The elementary school has been great to my grandchildren. The bus department has gone above and beyond what they need to do to accommodate my family. I have a special needs little girl that attends the Rum River North program, and they send a special bus for her to drive her all the way to Malacca where the program is. One van for one little girl. That's what our school system does for our community. new school. I toured the school recently, and the conditions I found in the shop area, the automotive area, the welding area, the cafeteria, the boiler room, everything is substandard. I come from a 25-year background in construction. If everybody would realize that the original part of this building was built in 1936. All the original plumbing, electrical, and everything was brought into the heart of the building. So as the community grew, so did the building. So by adding on to the building and surrounding basically the heart of the building, in order to make any kind of repair to the heart of the building, you have to tear off part of the building that we have rebuilt. So that $75 pipe fix that you need to make may cost you $100 grand by the time you rip into it, because once you rip into the old part of that building, we're looking at lead abatement issues, we're looking at asbestos issues, and these are all things that we should all be concerned for our children. The other thing that I want to bring up is the misleading billboards. I know that the fact that they say 52 million plus interest, that's what we are asking for. But to be quite honest, if you do the math, the state of Minnesota is going to give us 45%. They're going to match us 45%, which brings that 52 million down to right about $32,640,000 is what the actual referendum would be for. So the signs on the highway, although the facts, the numbers are correct, that's still only part of the information. And we as a community need to get out and inform everybody else what the real numbers are. And basically, the school board, I want to thank you for all the work you've done in. I recently met Tammy, and I know that she goes way above and beyond what her job duties are. And I'm sure that as I get to know the rest of you, I imagine that you all do the same thing, because everybody sitting in this room has the same goal in mind, and that's a better education for our children. Now Jason Rick, he went on Facebook last night and congratulated our elementary school for the award of excellence, only one of two given out in the state. I feel personally that the city of Mora should have gotten 2 awards if we had a high school that matched our elementary school. We have the staff. Everybody that has met on the staff has been very professional, very educated. They care about our kids. I've come by here on Saturday and seen teachers' cars in the parking lot. I come by here at 7, 8 o'clock at night. I see teachers' cars in the parking lots working after hours on their own time. They don't get paid at 8 o'clock at night to be here, but they're here making lesson plans and stuff for the next day. The other thing is, I go down to the stores. I shop at Walmart in Cambridge, and I see teachers in there buying school supplies for their classrooms. Totally unnecessary. We as a community should be able to provide our children with the necessary tools that they need to succeed. If we don't build a new high school now, with the state giving us 45% match, there's nothing to say that the next time around the state's going to want to give us that kind of money. If we wait till 2025, with the projected building cost of the high school will jump up to 75.8 billion, or 8 million, I think is the correct number. We're not guaranteed that the state's going to want to step in and pay 45% of that. So, in my opinion, the time to get this done is right now. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I think that was just a PSA for everybody needs to vote. We do have an election coming up, so we'll leave it at that, and appreciate you being here. Anybody else here to address the board at this time? All right. Again, really do appreciate the community input. That's what local government's all about, and there are 5 board members here tonight. We have 6 board members that are totally unified in being fiscally responsible and trying to move our district and our community forward, and above all, take care of the kids that we have in our schools. So we appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, we will move on to the presentation that we're going to see. Jeff, hello, do you want to talk about
Is it okay
what's
if I-
happening next?
If I kind of introduce this?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry, Brett. Just know we have our two representatives from Wold here tonight, and I apologize, I do not remember your first names from last time, but you can tell us who you are also when the time comes.
Well, I appreciate the comments you made. It was Tom, right?
Yes.
Because that is my concern as well, just people knowing the facts. And one thing I'm really excited about this time around with the referendum is we have a website dedicated to informing all of the public, and that's the Mustangs United website. Many of you have seen it, some of you have not. One of the things that we hear the most, Mr. Baki and I, is, well, what's the need? What's the need? What's the need? And rather than hearing us say, well, this is a problem, and this is a problem, and this is a problem, we felt like it'd be best to hear from the teachers. They're on the front lines, they deal with the issues every day. So when you go to this website, you'll see that there are 4 videos, and they're very short. And since they're only a minute apiece, I'd like to show them at this time, if that's all right with you guys.
You can do that.
So here's a typical welding booth that we have here in our welding shop. It's fairly dim. We don't have a whole lot of ability to see. We have a ventilation system as well that doesn't really pull out a lot of the hazardous fumes. You know, all of my time spent in industry, I've seen a lot of different shops and potentially places where our students and our graduates are going to go and work. And our abilities here, they don't measure up. Here in the workshop, our struggles are the lighting, the space. We just don't have room to house enough students, and we just can't evacuate the sawdust fast enough to keep it from building up and going into our lungs. People can say it's good enough, but we don't want to settle for good enough. We want to push the barriers so that we can actually prepare kids so that they can be successful. Please educate yourself and learn all you can about the referendum that's coming up, and remember to vote November 5th.
This morning, Mr. Brandt, Mr. Baki, and I gave a tour to 8 community members. We hope to get more tours, but that was an area, when we took those 8 down and showed them the shop area, several of them spoke up and they said they wish we had an overhead door so we could work on trailers, and they wish that we had more collaboration between the different shop areas, and things that we just aren't able to do with space. And they wish we could build a house like Malacca does. Well, where would we do that back there? So if you want to show another one, Jeff.
These are the lovely garbage cans that our students see each day when they walk into the school. All students get off the bus at this back entrance and they walk past these garbage cans to start their day.
And for students in wheelchairs, this is their only entrance into the high school.
We have a really good team up here and we do everything we can to make sure our students have as much access to everything that everybody else has. And sometimes the school building does limit the things that we can do for some of those needs.
We do have 2 students, if you're in wheelchairs, they're going to need to use the elevator at the same time. You can see it's not very big.
And so that can really leave kids and community members out of being involved in the building. The building has multiple staircases, so in emergencies or evacuations, to get students to go downstairs is sometimes really difficult.
Yeah, so if you come look in here, you will see the cells. It can fit 1 student, but if a student needs help, the staff and the student in it together is a tight squeeze.
We love these kids. I mean, they're like our second family here. I think our biggest goal for our students is to make them as independent as possible and be active members of their community. Please learn all you can about this upcoming referendum and remember to vote November 5th.
Again, with our tour that we gave today, one of the community members was in a wheelchair, and when we would go from floor to floor, we had to wait for her. And we have several students that are also in wheelchairs, and while the lady on our tour is getting in there, the students, it's passing time and they're having to wait, and they get to class late because we only have the 1 small elevator. The students in Katie and Jenny's program, their main focus is transitions. they're getting ready for life after high school. And ideally, we would have an apartment type setup where students can learn to vacuum and unclog a toilet and do the dishes and, you know, just like a real apartment. And my vision is if we are to pass this, we will have that in the new school.
This is an older building. They never really thought about what science would evolve into and what teaching would evolve into. A building is a building, but the learning that goes inside a building is drastically different. And right now our students are limited by what we have. You look at gas lines that are broke, and it's not the fact of just clipping and reattaching a new line. They're encased in the concrete. Each one of the rooms within the science department struggles with proper ventilation. They don't have any sprinkler systems. Eye washes have to be shared. There's only 2 rooms that have actual eye washes within the room. The main concern with all the teachers here at Mora High School and the science department is the fact that we really want to stress safety. I mean, the whole Mora community is a family. We don't want anything bad to happen to any of our students. Please learn all you can about this upcoming referendum, and remember to vote on November 5th.
I like that, you know, Lindsay brought up science and STEM careers. That's what we're trying to do. We're preparing a workforce, and he talked a lot about safety. Well, we care a lot about safety, but we also care about making sure they're ready for when they go to college. And when you hear our college students talk about science, they're behind. They're not up to speed with other high schools.
Currently, our locker room supervision is a nightmare. We're standing in one of 4 locker rooms that are located in the basement, and our gym is located on the west side of the building on the 2nd floor. And we're gonna go there now. We can't be in 2 spots at the same time to supervise kids. For 1 or even 2 people to be in 4 different places, 5 including the gym, is impossible. And it's not about looks for me, it's about keeping kids safe, and when you know you can't supervise everything that's going on, it is a helpless feeling. Everything we do is on this top field up here. So the fence line runs along the county highway. I mean, I know there's a fence there, but we do lose balls and frisbees and whatever else over the fence. It always comes back down to the kids. You know, you never would want to put your own child in a situation that is unsafe or unsupervised. I don't think any kid should be in that situation. Please learn all you can about the upcoming referendum, and remember to vote on November 5th.
One thing I've learned about bullying is it's going to happen in every school, but it happens when adults aren't watching. So it doesn't happen in front of the teachers, and you just saw there an example that we struggle with every day. 4 locker rooms, the gym's up here. If you're one teacher, you can't be in 3 places at once. I was lucky a couple years ago to go up to Hermantown and see their new high school, and if this was the gym, they didn't even have a hallway. It was gym, locker room, right there. The boys' locker room door was here, the girls' door was here. I used to be a FIDE teacher. I could stand right here and hear what's going on in the boys' locker room, the girls, and be able to see the gym. I mean, that's what we're looking for is sight lines. We don't want that supervision nightmare that we have right now. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff.
There you go, Rob. So I'm Jeff Schultz with the ICS, as well as with me is I've got both Robert and Jacob from Wold. And I know Board Chair Kirshner, you had asked for a meeting ago that you'd like to get some more information about space programming and comparisons to our existing school. So we're prepared to give you some of that information here today.
All right.
And field your questions that you might have associated with that. So let me make sure I get the right thing here. Let me go right here.
I'll just say while Jeff is pulling it up, we've now been in, well, I'll save it. Go ahead. Are you ready?
No, yeah, go ahead.
Going into our second full year at Mora Elementary, the new Mora Elementary edition. At some point, it would be nice if possibly we could have some elementary teachers at a board meeting to just speak of what was then back at Fairview compared to now after a year at Mora Elementary in the new edition. And it was quite a year of transition last year. You could still say you're transitioning. It takes a while, I realize, but I think it would be really nice for community awareness or just to share a little bit about how things are now, given that you've been able to be in the new space for a year and just update everybody. So, and I'm not speaking to any elementary teachers here tonight, Anna specifically, but carry the message if you would. Ladies, thanks.
Okay, I'm going to try to keep it as brief as I can because space program can get pretty boring and a lot of detail, but we'll try to hit some high-level things for you, keep it pretty exciting. Our agenda is talk about space program review, talk about other community-led projects, design process, what it means. You've been through one before a couple times. Give you some examples that other schools have done, and then field your questions. So this is the world process of once a referendum's passed, what do you do, right? Then you start the design. And I'm sure as board members, it's like we get other school districts, or people are asking you, well, I wish I knew what it's going to look like, right? Is it going to be 2 stories or is it 1 story? We don't know yet. Until we have the referendum, we don't have the dollars to spend on design, right? And a lot of people don't understand that in a private sector it's different, right? But public sector, you just don't have those dollars. But once we get to design, we get into concept, detail, and you've been through this as a board, but I think it's always good for community to understand. It's really the same process you use with Trailview, right? But the other part is it engages a lot of people as part of it. A well-done process engages community input, teacher input, and the like. You'll recall we have a pre-diagram of what it might look like, right? At least because it fit on the space, and so on with the 7th and 8th grade section. And then if both ballot questions pass, how it might integrate with your existing campus. And I think there's some things to highlight out of Wold's kind of pre-design from just to talk through it. But if you look at their main entry, it might be there, right? Again, this is pre-design, but it's coming into what be community space, community gathering spaces with your cafeteria space, your auditorium space, your game gym, and then also connected to your wellness center and your music and arts. So that little section there, one was what we call in the business the high bay space. So it is going to be really high level space. But it also can be community use, and we can lock classroom spaces off in the evenings and on weekends. So you can really use this as a significant community center. And it's connected right to your wellness center. So just some really neat concepts in what they put together. And then if you look in the green area, it's your classroom kind of areas and wing, and always making sure you have room for expansion. Because somebody did present earlier that if you build it, they will come. Well, they might. So we want to make sure we have allocated space where you could expand down the road with good planning. So then that green area would likely be a 2-story area with classrooms. So just kind of gives you a little flavor of how it might fit on your site. All right, understanding space program. Here we go. Board members, you got a handout in a packet. But in that packet, the first page is a comparison of Fairview. And you've had a couple of educational adequacy studies done by the district over the last 12 years or 10 years here. But one study from before had red, greens, and yellows. And the red means those spaces do not meet MDE guidelines for space. Okay, and if it's green, it does meet MDE guidelines for space. So your Fairview, when you moved it to Trailview, went from reds and yellows and a lot of reds to all green now with your addition at Trailview, with one exception. We don't have an auditorium up there, right? But you do use your big spaces and other areas for larger assemblies. Now, if the referendum did pass, the elementary students would be able to use the auditorium that would be connected through the wellness center. And so that would likely, that would be a green. It would turn to a green for that site. But this helps you kind of see, what are we talking about? But we're talking about the educational spaces and whether they meet the standards and guidelines for the Department of Education. Okay? So here's another example. So Wold did a educational adequacy assessment for the district about a year ago. And so if you look on the left side, those are all your classrooms. And so you see my little orange square talks about, for example, out of your general purpose classrooms in this building, 25 out of 25 of them, 19 or 76% of them are below MDE guidelines. So what's that mean? They're too small. You've got desks jammed in there. So if you're a teacher, you're trying to do breakout learning or personal learning in different parts of your classroom, you don't have the space to do that. I see the students nodding their head like, well, we're crowded, right? We're crowded, right?
Jeff, can I add something?
Yes.
When Mr. Baki and I gave our tour today, the people on the tour noticed students are sitting in the hall all over on 4th floor.
Yeah.
Ladies, do you see
Yeah,
that
we
often?
do that a lot.
Yeah.
Why do we have to do that?
Don't have enough space to talk.
Easier to work outside.
You know, so when we break up into groups and have collaboration time, we don't fit in the room.
That's good. Great comments. So then let's talk about science. If you look at the science, and I put science in here because, well, you meet the standards in a lot of your science for the size of your science class, but that doesn't mean that the ventilation's good. You saw the video, right? The ventilation, our safety needs, eye wash stations, the gas valves don't even work, right? So the facility needs are different than the educational space needs is what I'm trying to get at. There's a very distinct difference there that comes into space programming. So, but you look at your 7th grade science room. I don't know. I see someone here that's a teacher in the 7th grade science room. You're a lucky winner of the smallest science class that I think I've ever seen in the industry. There's nowhere to hide, right? That's extremely a difficult place to try to run a science class at 800 square feet, right? So thanks for being here. You're a nice prop. Yes. Yeah, didn't mean to highlight you. So what is the space program for the new school? Now, this was just recently approved now by the Department of Education. This is submitted to the Department of Education. They look at the space program that was put together. Wold didn't just put this together. ICS didn't just put this together. Your staff, your administrative team, your principal of the high school, a lot of input on this space program to customize it around the number of kids you have, the demographic study that you did as a school board, so you can see the projection of kids. But the spaces are really set up for what is it that you're looking to teach and learn here with your community and your school district, okay? I'm not going to dive into deep detail with them, but I'll use science for example. We have all right-sized MDE standard classrooms, including the 7th grade science room in the plan. But in addition to that, we have storage space included in the space plan for your science rooms, which you don't have today. So you can store chemicals safely and those sorts of things. So just an example of those items in your space program. Your principal was adamant that you have enough tech ed spaces so that we can offer the STEM programming that he's dreaming about, and they have your parent that spoke earlier talked about. So you have the science, technology, engineering, and math classrooms that are collaborative type of classrooms. So the space is there, and it's really up to the community. If you pass a referendum, the community, educators, board input, administrative input to customize what the school will look like. The space program is a starting point. It's a starting roadmap for you to design the schools for your community. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Robert to talk about examples of other, about some of the process as well as other spaces and why they're a little different. And so, Robert?
Thanks, Jeff. We'll go through some photos here. I think there's a lot of similarities and common themes here around collaboration, flexibility, supervision, personalized learning, and 21st century learning. I would like to reiterate what Jeff said, though, that this is a very intensive, user-driven process that we go through. So you'll see a lot of common themes throughout the photos, but again, it's all custom based on the user and the owner and the district and the location. So we like to go on tours, we like to review things like this, but we want to make sure that this is your guys' building, it's not ours. The bubble diagrams and other things that we've done basically just help validate things that we're talking about, but we want to make sure this is for you guys and it's not us showing up with a cookie cutter design. So here's an example of personalized learning. We've got flexible learning in there. We've got collaboration space. We've got space for individuals, small groups, medium-sized groups, more privacy over in the conference rooms over there. And then you'll also notice there's just a lot of glass and open space, which hits on some of the supervision concerns. Obviously not a locker room here, but it's a concept that we implement throughout all of the spaces. Flexibility, again, here's some spaces where we've taken what would probably be traditionally a circulation path or just a corridor. So now instead of having students sitting out on the floor in front of lockers, it's an actual space that they can interact and be creative and use. It's designed with that sort of flexibility, and it's also an efficient use of square footage.
One of the big topics that comes up for us is how the nature of education is changing over time, and how spaces that are single-use spaces are oftentimes underutilized from an educational standpoint. And the library or the media center is really one of those kinds of places. So we put some examples of what a current kind of media center would look like. So this diagram really starts to explain that the educational process in here is really kind of like a design feedback loop. Students are using a space, they have an interest, so they go and they do research where the data is, they formulate a hypothesis or a question, and then they start to test it, they present it out to their peers or their teachers, they receive feedback, and then they refine from there, and it's a cycle. So the need of the space is to try and accommodate that. So if we go to the next one here, this is just an example of what a media center could look like. So you'll notice a distinct lack of bookshelves. It's not because there are no bookshelves, it's because the space is being utilized much more efficiently by allowing students to sit down in different group sizes. In this instance, they're going to a media specialist who will pull books from high density storage. So we're actually recapturing a lot of floor space that is not. I think my mic went dead. So we're working towards much more personalized spaces that students can use more effectively during this design process. Next slide. This one, again, you can, Robert touched earlier on the variety of group sizes that are required whenever you're doing different kinds of projects. The need to be able to go out independently and then to be able to reform into a larger group. And this media center has small tech bars where groups of 4 to 6 students are sitting down. They're working in a digital environment. There are small conference rooms to the top left there. And then you can see a secure line which says, after hours, I don't necessarily want to allow students into a space where they have free access to all of our materials that will walk off. I'm sure each of you understands that you probably have a library book that is on your shelf right now that you should have returned. So this is just one way of reorganizing a space to allow you to kind of have these different kinds of learning environments. So.
And you'll also notice that these environments match more what you're going to see, I guess, out in the real world. It's that coffee shop feel, that college feel. It helps bridge that gap from high school to college. But the spaces that we work on, though, and some of the educational spaces and CTE that we'll get into, though, we know that not everybody's path is to go to college. Some are going to go directly into the workforce. Some are going to go to a technical school. So we try to accommodate all those different goals as well. Here's an example of blending the cafeteria, some circulation space, and also the media center. About half of this particular media center is just flexible seating. And that's another common thing that we use that helps the flexible spaces is the soft seating. It's great for sitting by yourself and being private in a little corner or a smaller group. And again, it's just total flexibility of that space. And
Yeah, so just comment on this. So this isn't your school, but if you remember the preliminary design where you might have that big opening where the high bay space for where you'd come into the school, this might be something that would look like your community space, right? Where the community can use this space, both for media center, cafeteria, and then right adjacent to your athletic fields or athletic spaces and so on. So it really becomes that community center type of feel.
And this is a project that I work on, so it's probably the best example in here by far. So again, more just continued examples of the collaborative multi-use spaces that we've got out there. Again, with the flex seating, the supervision, the sight lines, all the things that we've heard from staff and the district to date here. It's just a great way to promote that 21st century learning, give the staff the supervision and the tools that they need to be as successful as possible to prepare the students.
I think you'll notice here that there isn't a single student who's just sitting out in the hallway, right? So every one of these includes the circulation space, and so where you would normally come up against a hard corner where somebody's just sitting with their back against the wall, we've taken those walls out and made these a much more open environments.
Yeah. And you heard the parent talk about we want a place where kids want to be. They want to be at school. There's a place that they want to be. I look at the kids sitting next to me. They're like, oh yeah, they're getting so excited when they see these pictures. And again, with mental health challenges and so on, we have today at today's schools, we really want to have an environment that's welcoming to all kids.
Here's some examples of some trades and specialized programs. We know that we're dealing with a lot more subject matter that has the real world applications. There's a lot of different new professions out there students want to explore, have a better understanding of what those specialized trades and jobs might be. And then it also maximizes the collaboration when we can look at some specific spaces, but then also how those spaces can work with each other and the adjacencies. Again, be efficient with square footage, and then also collaboration. As we know, in everybody's workforce, you don't work in a vacuum or in a silo. There's always different team members, different departments, and this is just another way to help promote that.
So as board members, as you look through your space program comparisons from before and after, what you have today, it is going to be different. And keep things in mind that you're not going to be building the same spaces that you have. You're going to have spaces that are now utilized more, right? Right now, if you go through your high school, there's some rooms that are used 1 hour a day. Cafeteria is used 2 hours a day, right? Or certain spaces where the spaces that are designed in today's schools are multi-use, multifunctional, and they're built with flexibility in mind because we don't know what educational changes might be coming down the road, right? So it's built with that in mind.
So if we look at these core, subjects, we've got science, industrial technology, and the arts and life skills. And the really exciting thing about collaboration is that when you start to look at the way these interact, you get these branches, right? So science, industrial technology comes together for manufacturing or robotics and engineering with the arts. Industrial technology and life skills starts to be media production. That's communications, you're working on a film crew, right? So this is just an example of the different kinds of content areas that get created whenever you look at how these subject matters can work together and collaborate.
Yeah, and if you look at this, this is a lot of a career academy type of high school things. You might hear that terminology, but really is establishing real career pathways for kids that they can go through high school and come out with a job or know what career they're looking to focus on. So you see all this and you go, oh gosh, well, we don't have all of this in our space program, right? No, we don't. I think the key to this is really to put the right programs that fit your community. Right? You have manufacturing here in Mora. You have healthcare right here in Mora looking for workers, right? You can create those spaces that really complement the programs you got with Pine Tech, right? And I can't remember what First Light's new name, Wellia, right? Yes. That really can complement the jobs and careers that are here today. You can keep people here locally.
So these are some of those specialized spaces. We saw in the video earlier what a science classroom looks like in the high school here, and these are science classrooms that are incorporating an aspect of research. The islands are not fixed in place anymore. This is a much more open and flexible room, reconfigurable so that you can work in different group sizes. You can huddle up. There are a lot more opportunities here. Again, with things that are not all that uncommon from what you see in today. So this is just kind of a new an example of a contemporary space. The one on the right, you can see there's an overhead piece that allows for I think they do robotics in this room. So they're programming, right?
What's cool about when we build spaces like this, what's cool when you see with the kids, you see kids working collaboratively together. Some kids are good at design and engineering and putting plans together. Other kids are really good at building stuff. And when they work together and collaborate together, it's amazing what they can do, right? And whereas some of the older traditional type of spaces are, we have shop class for kids that build stuff versus the kids working together collaboratively back and forth.
Again, with the medical component, there are specialized programs that can provide students with the opportunity to engage patients or patient environments within a classroom setting. So the top right version here shows a typical patient bed and also has the ability to function as a standard classroom. So you can move from the hands-on space back to the more lecture style format. So this is a much more flexible space than what a typical classroom would offer you. I know everybody's probably really excited about this one. This is a design and fabrication lab. So these are places with clean classrooms as well as the more dirty shop space. So we've got CNC mills or laser cutters, whatever technology is being utilized, the students have the ability to create content and then move out and actually see that materialized.
We're talking with another school district that instead of building a woods class or a metals class or a plastics class, it's having the materials and letting the kids figure out what material might be the best fit for the project that they're working on, and they figure it out themselves. Some might build it out of plastic, some might build out of wood, some might build out of metal, but giving the kids the ability and flexibility to try to figure out what works best for them. And a great learning experience.
Right, and automotive shops are not just places where people turn wrenches anymore. We had a commenter earlier talking about electronics. These are spaces that are looking at what it means to have automotive technology in a 21st century space. So you can very easily see the translation from these more traditional looking shops into a space where they're collaborating with the robotics team, and now all of a sudden there's a vehicle that is solar powered down there, sponsored by Shell. So.
You guys have a great robotics team, right? Having a space that other schools have for the robotics type of programs, right?
Right, and this all comes from disciplines working together. This is no longer working in a silo. So, and the same can be said again. We talked community and communication. So you see the film production on the top right. There's a cafe spot on the left. So students are not just they're operating their own cafe. They are learning how to run it like a business. And so there's a lot of ability to kind of bring in real world application to these spaces.
And so, in summary, we'll go through what we just kind of talked about and what we know. The space program that was developed is based on recommended square footage for the projected student enrollment, but nothing has been designed yet. School districts commonly engage the community in the design process after the referendum. That's what we do. That's what ICS does. We enjoy that process. It's a great process. We can also learn, and we can get better at our job as well. When we get the feedback from the students and the staff and the community, it really helps push that design process forward. And if the voters decide to invest in a new addition, then the design process will include that community input. So I think it's pretty clear that it's important that this is your community, this is your building. We're here to help facilitate that, and we've got examples and experience to show the different ways that we can work successfully together.
Thank you. Just the things that I gleaned from that or that came to my mind. I first of all have to say how proud I am to be part of a district that offers so much right now in programming that we saw here. I am amazed at what we're offering in the space that we have, the robotics, the career and tech ed, the just countless things that are happening here in a compromised space or in a less than adequate space. And then the other takeaway that I had where there were at least 3 areas that you highlighted here that I hear as major questions or concerns that people have talking about the referendum. Number 1, I just made a note, the community wants to know that they would have a say in what it looks like. They get a little frustrated. Some people are wanting to know now what it's going to look like, and we have to explain why we don't have anything in stone. But when that time comes, it will involve the community. They will be part of the design and have input, and it will become the community's school or space with input from people in the community in each of these areas. The second thing was a concern is that we're going to overbuild or build more than what we need. Comparisons get made to other schools in other areas or new construction in other school districts, and their concern is that we don't need that. We reassure them that we're going to build to fit what is needed here, nothing more, nothing less. Will it be good? Yes, it'll be functional, beautiful space.
I like what Jeff said about right size but expandable.
And then the third thing was flexibility. One of the other major concerns is what will delivery of services or what will education look like in the future? None of us knows, and the negative that I hear is we won't need classrooms. That's really debatable. We can at least assure them that the space we have will be flexible to change with the times, and that depending on what education looks like or what's needed in the future, we can meet that. We'll be flexible with our space. But you hit on some relevant concerns that I hear whenever we're talking to people about the importance of voting in this election. So, thank you. And girls, you kind of wish you were back in elementary? No.
No.
No. I know. Wouldn't it be nice, though? We can dream. All right. Thank you. Anybody else have any comments, or we will move on to the next item? All right. Presentation on world's best workforce, and that would be Brenda.
You got a light there? No. You gotta hold it.
So I have presented the world's best workforce to you guys the last couple of years. This is the 3rd year with this format. And so I did condense this down because I know you're very familiar with the current format. And so like I told you before, there's 2 reports. The summary report, which is a template supplied by MDE. It's submitted every December 15th. And it's a reflection on last year's performance. So what did we do during the 2018-2019 school year? And then there's also the annual report, which is the one that we do in district. It's not submitted to MDE. It's the current plan for this year. few different things that are in the format. We have to include that link to the annual report, which is part of the law. We have to put that on our website, which we have every year. We have to have an annual public meeting, which we are doing right now. And also, we present it at the board advisory prior to bringing it to you, so we do it twice actually. We have to have a district advisory committee, which we do, and we have to list all the names and their roles. We have to have equitable access to, it used to say excellent teachers. This year it's changed to effective and diverse teachers. So we have to have some things about percentages and prove that we're doing that. And then the goals, the 5 goals with a narrative of what we are doing to reach those, and then indicating whether we met those goals or they're on track. So I broke this down to just the 5 goals. So this is a review of last year's and what we'll turn in December. So the goal, all students ready for kindergarten. We wanted last year, the kids came in 8% proficient when they started preschool. We wanted them to get to 45% in the spring. We got to 58%. So we did beat that goal by a lot, and we're able to say we met that on this year's summary report. The second goal is all 3rd grade students achieving grade level literacy. We took the 17-18 score of 61.9. We wanted to be at 65.9. We came up with this goal according to what MDE wants us to do. By 2025, they want us to be at 90%. So you just divide that out, and that's how you get this goal. We were at 60.2%. We did miss this rigorous goal, which that was, but you can see the state averages here. We do quite well for ourselves. We outperformed the state, but we will put not met on that one. Closing the achievement gap. We have 2 achievement gaps that we report on in literacy. One is free and reduced, and one is special ed. So this one was the free and reduced versus non-free and reduced. So they pull those student bodies apart. And then what is the gap between where the non-free and reduced students perform and where the free and reduced students perform? What is that gap between their proficiency? We did, the year before, it was a phenomenal, we got 15.7%, which was a very low gap. So because of that, our goal was to go a little bit lower, 14.2. Our gap is 23% for last year. The state gap is 30.6. We still do well for ourselves. We just didn't reach this very lofty goal of 14.2. So that'll be not bad. Special education versus the non-special education students, that gap in between their performance. Again, that year before we did really quite great by ourselves there. So our goal was to decrease it a little bit more. We did get a gap of 26.3%. We did beat the state gap, so we do okay by ourselves, but we did not meet that goal. All groups career and college ready. Minnesota State uses 8th grade as the base for this goal. So our goal was 53.4%. 8th grade math was at 56.6. So we met that goal. The impressive thing is it was not only 11.3%, but we were below the state average prior to this. Now we've jumped above the state average. So it was really a great performance by our 8th grade math. And then all students graduate. This is a 2020 goal of 90% set by the state plan. So we had reached that. So to say that we were going to go more, just incrementally, we said we would go up some more. Our grad rate was 88% for the 4-year rate last year. We did drop. The state is at 83.2. We're still well above the state average graduation rate. We will put not met, but we still do okay have a little bit of growth there.
And just asterisk, does that include now the ALC yet?
It does, includes ALC.
Sorry. All right, I can't
Yeah.
read, I didn't look.
Yeah, and I looked that up too, what the state expected us to do. Did they expect us to exclude? No, it's all of our students and how, the graduation rate, so. So that's the summary report and what I will include on the one that we submit with the narratives on there. This is annual report goals, so this is on our new World's Best Workforce for this year. And we'll report on these next year. So all students ready for kindergarten. I don't have their information for fall yet. They're gonna finish up in October. So I'll put that in there once I get that information from early childhood. We're just a little bit before that time right now. All third grade students achieving grade level literacy. They changed the criteria. It used to say October 1st. Then last year it was 50% of the year. Now it's meeting enrollment criteria. I like that because now if they change it, it's still just meeting whatever enrollment criteria that MDE sets. So the goal will be to go from last year's performance to a 65.2% this next spring, third grade literacy. Closing the achievement gap, so reducing free and reduced versus non-free and reduced reading. There was that 23% gap that we got, so we want to reduce that a bit this year to 20%. Then special education reading, so decreasing that 26.3% gap down to 22.7 will be our goal. And then 8th grade math, you know, they did really a great job last year. There is some bit of a jump here by 2020. Sounds weird to say 2020. But yeah, so the 64.1 will be the goal based off them being 90% proficient in 2025, which is the goal set by MDE. And then graduation rates, eligible to graduate spring 2019. Graduation rates always lag a year behind. 88 was what we got in 2018, so 90% would be the goal to reach that goal. Well, by last spring, yeah, 4-year graduation rate. That is the information that'll be both on the summary and the annual. If you feel like those goals are okay, Board Advisory has made a recommendation that we bring these to you to be voted on. And so you guys would need to vote on both the summary and the annual report, and then I would get it to MDE and get it put on our website. I'll finish this first.
Go ahead. Sure.
North Star and Achievement. So if we go forward, last year I gave you a North Star presentation because we changed, Minnesota changed the whole accountability system. I just included a couple things here. So it's based off that federal law, the ESSA, Every Student Succeeds. Each state had to come up with its own plan. Minnesota's plan is called the North Star. And it aligns support with the money. And it also identifies schools for support each of 3 years, not this year. And it also recognizes schools for high performance. 5 indicators are used for the North Star. Academic achievement, what we traditionally think of as proficient. Progress towards EL proficiency. This one really is not something that Mora has any data for. And academic progress, that is if a child is at a certain level, they maintain that level, they improve that level, or they go back. So how are they progressing? And then graduation rates, they use a 4 and a 7, and consistent attendance. So I included just a snapshot of what it actually looks. This is actually off of the North Star report. And this is the academic achievement rate that is reported out. The math and the reading, they use a little bit different criteria, so the numbers might not exactly match some of the other things we see. They use all students expected to test, which is a little bit different eligibility criteria than the other data that we've seen. And so here you'll see the math and reading that they use, with the state in the blue and Mora in the green. We outperform the state on both of those. The red is where they would start to look at schools for support. We're above that. Graduation rate is the stage 2 indicator. They take stage 1, they say, oh, who are the schools that are in trouble? Then those schools, they put into stage 2. Then they look at this data. This is the 4-year, the 7-year with the blue at the state and the green with Mora. You can see we're above them in both the 4-year and the 7-year rate. And then another stage 2 indicator for 3rd through 8th grade, because they don't have a graduation rate, is the academic progress. So who are the kids that decreased in their level? So they went like from proficient down to partial, or they maintained a does not meet. Who are the kids that maintained their level? And then who are the kids that went up a level? And this is reading and that's math. So then the state takes a look at these and they say, okay, are there districts who both had stage 1, they're not doing very well, and stage 2, really the kids aren't progressing very well, then they put them into stage 3, which is consistent attendance. Consistent attendance means enrolled students who attend 90% of the time. So what percentage of our student body does that? Well, in Mora, it's 82.5%. The state average is at 85.4%. We have looked at this and kind of wondered, like, it's kind of a wondering, like, why ours is a little bit lower than the state's. So we'll be continuing to look at that. So that's the North Star. This gets into the MCAs. This is the reading trend. You've seen this one before. What this information is, it's a trend from 2011 through 2019. Every grade, 3rd through 10th grade reading. The green is all well above the state. The yellow is less than a percentage point minus or plus. And the red is well below the state average. It's just always so impressive for us to look at this and just see how we have just grown into what we now have as all green, which I don't believe, back in 2012 and now again in 2019. So that's always just pretty impressive for me to look at the colors. The next one is math, same thing. You can see how we've grown over the years just by looking at the colors. This year we had a little lapse in our 11th grade math, and then also 3rd grade is within a percentage point of the state average. We have changed the Q-Comp focus. Jen Strandy reported that last June to math this year, because data is indicating that we're kind of falling a little bit there as far as you can see the information that we have. We've had such a focus on reading. We do so well with reading now. We're really going to change it to some math focus as well now. Next one is science. We have done okay. Here you can see that the high school science is just a little bit behind there. 8th grade and 5th grade did okay by themselves. They're above the state average there. So that's the science. This one you have seen before. It's a comparison to all the area schools. We have, and this is the district, district-wide. We have your reading, your math, science, and then free and reduced percentage. This is the largest free and reduced. That's the smallest free and reduced. So the largest free and reduced, trend-wise, has the lowest performance, which you can see. Onemia down here is at the bottom. They have the biggest percentage. They also don't, they have the lowest performance proficiency on all of these tests. So Mora, being right here under the state, should be right about here. In math, we are. So math is where we're going to turn that focus to, and this again shows that that's a good thing that we're doing that. Reading, we're well well above. We outperform our demographics. Science, we outperform our demographics. Math, we're right on, but do we want to be right on? No, we want to be really outperforming our demographics as well. So that's the focus going forward. The next one is the same thing, except it's Mora Secondary. Mora Secondary does not include the ALC. It's just the general education. So reading, math, science, and then high school free and reduced percentages are always lower than elementary free and reduced. That's, I don't know, that's a phenomenon. That always happens. So the Mora High School is at 33%, the free and reduced. And so looking back, they are performing above the state and just about along that line. And then if you go to, this is the elementary. The elementary, you can see our percentage goes up kind of significantly to 45%. And if you look back, well, those two kind of speak for themselves. Reading, we're at the top. Science, we're at the top by actually kind of a lot, more than 5 percentage points. Math, you can see we're not doing as well as reading and science. We do above the state, but again, this is going to be a big focus for us this year in the PLCs, in our what we talk about in professional development. So hopefully we can get those up a little bit this year. Any questions about any of that? I know it's a lot of information. I gave you this handout, so you would, if you wanted to review it later, you
Bedside
could.
reading.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
so-
good data.
Yeah.
And this is, it's the same format as you shared over the years with this component, so it's helpful. We've seen it before, yeah.
Just to add a little bit on the free and reduced, the high school versus the elementary. Generally, families that have elementary students are younger families, and the individuals aren't as far along in their careers, versus as their children get older, they're also a little bit older and further along in their career, and fewer percent than qualify for free and reduced. So that's one of the reasons for that.
And all of the elementaries are higher, generally speaking, than their secondaries for free and reduced percentages. So at this time, you would consider the summary report and the annual report.
The two motions, or can we take it in one action?
Mr. Schultz?
The annual report and the
Two
summary?
motions would be
Two
better.
motions.
Okay, we'll do that. Would somebody please make a motion to approve the World's Best Workforce Annual Report?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Ethan, second by Bob Jensen. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. And then secondly, the summary report, motion there.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Scott, second by Ethan. Any
sorry,
further
we should go.
discussion?
Yeah.
All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes unanimously. And thank you for presenting and for all of your work to put it together and present to the advisory committee and bring the recommendation to us tonight. Thanks, Brenda. All right, we will move then to the consent agenda. Are there any requests to remove any items from the consent agenda? Not, so I'd entertain a motion to approve it as presented.
I'll motion.
Second.
Motion by Tammy, second by Scott. Any discussion? We'll accept the donations for the month, which are for August, I should say. United Way, $420 to the ALC, $100 More Education Foundation mini grant to More Elementary School teacher, More Education Foundation, a $1,000 pony grant to CAP with appreciation for those donations. Any other discussion on the consent agenda? If not, all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, we all received the final, or the proposed levy limitation and certification for taxes payable 2020. If we go to that, I'll turn it over to Craig and he can hit the highlights of that.
Okay. I'll draw your attention to the lower third of the page there. Item 2, comparison of the 2018 payable to the 2019 levy limitation with the 2019 payable 2020 levy limitation. You see the 3 categories there that we have: the general fund, the community service fund, and the general debt service. And if you look then in the first column is the 2018, and then in the second column is the 2019. That's what we're asking you to approve this evening. And then you see the increase and decrease. If you take a look at the general service piece, that goes up 7.78%. By $118,000. 84,000 of that is made up in the local optional piece, as well as in the building and land lease. And that building lease has to do specifically with our special education cooperative building, with Cambridge leaving the co-op, as well as then based on the number of students that we have there. So 84,000 of that 118 is made up in those 2 categories. One thing I want to remind you of is that when we talk about levy limitation, that's set by the Department of Education of what the max is, and so we ask you to approve to the max. And then if for some reason our student numbers go up or down, or if the number of students that we send to the level 4 services or any of those types of things, those things get adjusted. We don't really have any control over what that max is. That's set by the legislature and controlled by the Department of Education. One thing that does happen though is that as your relative market value goes up within the district, the state aid amount goes down, which then puts more on the local levy, which gives us the same number of dollars. So we see that in a couple of the categories as well. The community service fund goes up 8.4%. However, since that's such a smaller number, it's only $8,800. And then in the general debt service piece, that actually goes down 2.12%, or $30,777. If you'll recall, with debt service, we are allowed to charge that out or report to the county to set the taxes for debt for that collection at 105%, but it can't exceed 110%. And so that 5% that they give us is a cushion that if for some reason taxes aren't paid until a property is sold, that those dollars are there and available for us to meet our debt service obligations. So sometimes that 2% is somewhat deceiving in that we may have over the 110%, so we have to send some back, or we might be under the 105% and then we can collect some more. But it's based on the actual payment that we're required to pay each year. So we would request then that you would levy to the maximum on this. And again, those numbers this is the preliminary that goes to the county. They'll set those tax base pieces that will come out then about the middle of November. And then we do have that public hearing in December when you set the final levy. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Schultz? If not, somebody would make a motion to approve the proposed levy limitation and certification for taxes payable in 2020.
I'll move that.
Second.
Motion by Ethan, second by Bob Jensen. Any discussion? All in favor of that motion, say aye.
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 Opposed? And that motion passes unanimously.
That's great.
Yep, thank you, Craig. All right, agenda item 10, consider approval to dissolve the Cambridge Isani Co-op and Girls Hockey. And consider moving forward in establishing a co-op with Pine City. We had quite a bit of input during open forum on that tonight. It was brought to us last month, and we knew it would be placed on tonight's agenda for consideration of approval. Anybody prepared to make a motion, or how's everyone feeling? We could
I
get it
did
on.
talk to Chris earlier today, and we can wait another month if we choose to do so tonight. It's not a big issue. She thought it needed to be done by this month, but no, we could easily make it next month, and she's fine either way.
Okay. Yeah, I talked to Chris earlier in the week. I've done a lot of talking, or had a lot of parents talk to me too. I actually wrote something down just when we were talking earlier, and I don't know if it's something we can have the attorneys look at or something like that, but a delayed action, you know, similar to a memorandum of understanding, something like that, because again, we're trying to figure out how to seniors that are here, and how do we do that, and all the different parts involved. I don't think any of us are opposed, you know, anything to all the things. We're just trying to figure out how do we make that work. That's the one thing I put down to say, is that something that potentially we could get out, you know, to do, you know, just.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a couple ways of looking at it. I think
Yeah.
we have some options. What I've since learned, I mean, it was sort of unfortunate that we didn't hear the concerns raised a little sooner.
Yeah.
But we're where we are. It is
Yeah.
what it is now.
Yeah.
At the same time, from what I have also learned, it seems like Pine City would not have a problem if we join now or if we join sometime in the future. I think that's an
Hinkley's
important
doing that.
component because
Yeah.
we sure want to build a relationship or
Yeah.
continue building a positive relationship with Pine City
Yeah.
and have, equal input would be ideal in the end, you know, for practice times or
Yeah.
for all of the program
Yeah.
concerns or in running the program. So it puts us at least in a position where we have some time if we feel we'd rather go the route of something like Scott just said with a memorandum of understanding, or if we simply want to table it, a decision
Yeah.
to next month and have a little more time to research. Or if, I guess the third option would be to approve something tonight. But I too felt that if no one was going to be penalized for waiting another year,
Yeah.
I think that's a good option, but we really maybe could use some more time just to make sure we've covered all the
That's the way I'm leaning at this point.
how
But if
to what? Well, wait a year.
Yes. and-
But if there is no harm in waiting a month to make the decision,
Let's
how
do
does
that.
everybody feel about tabling it tonight?
Yeah.
Yep.
And bringing it back next month
Perfect.
for a vote?
Well, the decision needs to be made prior to the first practice a year in advance. And so if we're going to leave the co-op, that decision needs to be made next month,
Right.
prior to the start of the first practice. If we're going to stay in a year, then we don't have to take action on it at all. But we can do something along the lines of what Scott mentioned,
Yeah.
and that is that we can, if the board has a consensus that they want to wait that year, that we can let the other Pine City as well as Cambridge Isani know that's the intent, and then we have to take action prior
Makes
to the
sense.
first practice the following year.
Yep.
So we really, at this time, if the decision is to stay in another year, a second year, for these girls' junior year and senior year, then we just don't take action at all. We don't need to take that action. But again, if you want to have the discussion that you are of consensus that we would move, and I think we're trying to find a win-win for everybody on this.
Great.
And some of the information I heard tonight was, you know, Pine City would really like to have our two older girls, but they really want to stay with Cambridge Isani. And since we have a natural break there, that's what I would recommend as well, that we do. So again, if we're going to stay a year, then we don't need to take action, but we need to have consensus.
Yeah. And I certainly understand why Pine City would want to know, in Rush City, I mean, that co-op, that, yeah, our intent is, yep, in the future, we're looking at this. I mean, we would want those same things coming back our way. And I think they would understand too, like Craig had just mentioned, why we're thinking, this we're looking, out for. We have 2 students right now that have been actively involved, in that. So.
And I did appreciate what that one young gal said that's in the program, that there is a new coach and maybe there's some possibilities there too, so that can be looked at too.
Well, one thing I didn't understand, and I think Patty touched on, is that these girls, Pine City, Rush City, Mora, are already playing together in the youth program.
Yeah.
Correct.
And then for the junior varsity and varsity level is when they go to Cambridge Isani. And that has been Rush City, Pine City, and Mora. Hinckley Finlayson has been going to Moose Lake. And so Hinckley Finlayson has indicated that they're willing to join the Pine City Co-op also, but waiting an additional year like you
Sure.
discussed already this evening. So I think there will be Hinckley Finlayson potentially, as well as Rush City, and us that will all be waiting that year. Pine City feels they have enough numbers to run a JV and a varsity program this year and next year, if we opt to do what you've discussed this evening.
Okay.
But again, those girls have already been playing together, and I would agree. I think we want to win for these 2 girls that have been playing for, what did they say, 6, 7, 8 years?
Yep. Makes sense to me, and I guess I'd be in favor of some memorandum of understanding, not only for Pine City's benefit, but it seals our position in, joining them, so they don't, it's just clearly,
Yeah.
tells everybody what the intentions are.
So if you have consensus tonight among the 5 of you, that's what you'd like to do, is to wait the second year. We can talk with Pine City and Rush City and Cambridge Isani and let them know that that is our intent. You still have a year. You don't have to take action if we're not going to opt out a year from now.
I think we have consensus.
Okay.
Yes, and convey that through some kind of a letter of understanding with them.
I will do
All
that.
what you want.
Unless Chris finds out differently
Mhm.
that we should move forward
Mhm.
by next month, I
Mhm.
would agree.
Mhm.
But if Chris just found out something different that we needed to move forward quickly, then I would like it back on the agenda.
Assuming nothing
Does that make
changes
sense?
based
Okay.
on what we've heard so far.
Right.
Okay, sounds good, so thank you. And we will move on to consider approval of the resolution of school board supporting Form A application to the Minnesota State High School League Foundation. And that will enable us to receive a little rebate on fees paid. This is an annual consideration. It doesn't result in a lot of money, but a few $100s, whatever we do receive back, goes, if I am correct, toward activities fees for students who need the financial support, right, or hardship.
In grades 9 through 12, we have 185 students that receive free and reduced lunch rates. And of those 185, 47 students participate in activities. And so we file this form with the Minnesota State High School League. We get somewhere around $300 back. And then we just keep that in a slush funds for students that can't pay their fees, if they talk to their coach, if they talk to the AD, and then that we use that money to pay for their fees. So it's kind of,
It's different than the membership in the Minnesota State High School League. This is actually their foundation that we're.
the foundation, okay.
Okay, thank you.
And I would move
Okay.
approval.
Second.
Motion by Ethan, second by Scott. Any further discussion? I do believe this requires a roll call vote.
On Form A?
I'm looking. Maybe it does not. Actually, no, it does not.
I don't think so either.
All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, then, consider resolution appointing election judges for the November 5th election. And they are listed in your packet as well. Somebody move to approve that.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Bob Jensen, second by Tammy. Discussion. All right, this does require roll call vote. So Bob Jensen?
Aye.
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 All right, that motion passes unanimously with 5 voting in favor, 0 opposed, and 1 board member absent. Special election absentee ballot roster and update. This is informational, also in your packet. Everybody clear on what that is? Craig, did you want to address that, or it's information? Do we need any further information than what it says in our packet?
I don't believe so. Just that this is the
We need a ballot
board that does process the absentee ballots.
So does
And
that
you
mean
want-
they're the ones that are working in there?
I asked the
if you
same
have
question.
detailed,
No.
questions on that,
Okay.
I'm going to defer to Kelly. Kelly
But
can
yes,
tell you.
Kelly's our elections expert, so.
Did you ask, is this the?
Is this
ballots.
those who will be working as judges now prior, or
No,
for
as the
absentee voting?
voting personnel.
But not necess,
Will it be anybody else other than those 5 people working?
yes, the ballot board's different
The
than the
ballot board
judges.
Is different than the judges.
Mhm.
They're
Right, I know.
But they are the same folks that you will see most often in the district office unless something should happen. We do have the ability to add an election judge. But these would be the top 5 that you would see. Correct, yeah.
Okay.
But they're fulfilling another duty then besides.
Besides that, yes.
Mhm.
That's why it's 2 different things.
They're the folks allowed to be on the ballot board.
All 5 of them are election judges that we just approved, so.
Yep.
All right, that is for information only, so we will move on then to special election, consider approval to set the date to canvass the November 5th special election returns for Thursday, November 14th, 6 p.m. Need a motion to approve that date.
Second.
Motion by Ethan, second by Tammy. Any further discussion? All in favor of that motion, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right. Brings us to reports. So we will go with board reports. Board members?
I had the opportunity to sit at a informational booth regarding the referendum at the Mora Elementary Open House. It was very well received by a lot of the younger parents with younger children, and I'm talking about probably kindergarten through 3rd grade. People wanted to know more. They had a lot of great questions. We were able to answer a lot of questions, and they took the information home and said that they were going to share with their neighbors and their family members. So I did a second booth at the football game where we did the Hall of Fame, the Hall of Fame induction. I did an informational booth there as well. That one, a lot of people didn't really pay much attention because a lot of the people attending the football game were pretty well set in how they knew or with the information that they had known and how they were going to vote. So there wasn't a lot of interest there, but I'm going to continue to attend games with sporting events and whatever else I need to in order to get the proper information out for everybody in the district who needs to have actual information to make an informed vote.
I'm
Ethan,
pretty sure board members are still willing to go anywhere at most
Yes.
any time of the day, within reason to.
Yeah.
Got a nice big time at the high school open house,
Oh.
and I felt like I was surprised how many people were willing to come over, take information, ask questions. I guess I felt like, kind of like as the kids age, then the parents become more established and more informed, that there would be less, but there was still
Yeah.
quite a few people that had good questions.
Yeah. Yep. It was good to get out information. I don't think probably quite as much as at the elementary school, just based on Tammy's, talking with her after that. But we still had, it was a good number of people. Ethan and I split the time there. And then also Karen and I we attended Quamba City Council meeting and again, presented the school board, the information from the school district, all of our factual booklets, all the information, out there. And it was nice. Again, they had lots of questions, lots of information that put out there. And we always encourage anybody else, we're willing to go out, meet, present that information at any time.
A lot of people really are looking for
Mhm.
factual
Yes.
information because there's so much
Yes.
out there right
Correct.
now. So can't stress enough if people would like
Yeah.
us to bring numbers, bring brochures, bring facts. I'll be there.
Yeah, and again, to be clear, this is not vote yes information. This is school district information that presents both sides. We just encourage everybody, to
Seek
study,
it out
make,
if you are
make up
asked.
your minds, research out the information, and vote accordingly, however way they decide.
I
All right.
got a few,
Bob?
I think it was September 9th, the board advisories, most of the same topics that we talked about tonight were talked about there. Mr. Schultz made the announcement that he would stay afterwards for questions about the referendum and stuff, and it seemed like, I think I got out of here at like 10 minutes to 2, so it was a very long meeting, and there was a lot of good questions and topics, and looking at the website today, a lot of those questions from that day were answered in that website thing on the Mustang.
Mustangs United.
Yes, that's very informative. I spent about a half an hour on that today, and just talking about all the facts, and I related it to board advisory and all the topics that were talked about there. So, then on the 18th, I had a ECMEC board meeting down in Braham. Same officers in those positions. Nothing new and exciting. There will be in next month's report about the value, and I didn't bring it along, I apologize, but the value of how much money we actually get out of it. I think it was like $60,000 extra that not in money wise, but in value wise that we're getting out of the ECMEC extras that we're getting out of the ECMEC. Then Rum River, Mr. Schultz and I have been very busy with Rum River sitting on the negotiation teams. 2 of the contracts today were approved. We had a board meeting this morning, and we have a tentative on the teacher agreement on that. And I can't remember how many times we've met with the teachers. The pairs basically was one meeting for about 2 hours and 15 minutes, and we settled, but the other ones were a little longer, and the teacher one was several different meetings, but we're finally there on that. So, and then at the board meeting today, like I said, we just approved those contracts and talked about since Cambridge got out of the co-op, there's some stipulations there, and we're looking into those. And there was one other case several years ago, and that took about 4 years to settle, from what we learned today. So that's about it for my report.
Okay. Any other board members? If not, we'll hear from our student board members. Girls, glad you're here.
I'm Sierra Thompson. And I'm Emmy Otto. And we're juniors on student council. And this year, we're really focusing on having everyone in our school have school spirit. And we're really trying to push everyone, like lots of people showing up to sporting events, dressing up for the homecoming days, just everyone being involved more.
One thing that I feel like has gone really well so far is our school dances. There's our first back to school dance. There were people lining up at the doors just waiting to come in, and they actually really enjoyed it, and it was fun seeing them being all excited, dancing around, having a good time, especially for the new 7th graders. And then we have our homecoming dance coming up, so hopefully that one turns out as well as the next one. And then another upcoming thing we have is the blood drive, which usually turns out pretty well, so I'm excited to see how that goes.
And
Do you have a date for that, Em?
November
5th?
6th.
One day
Yep.
off.
And then right now, us juniors are busy planning for homecoming. And tomorrow we have the game show for the top 5, and then we're actually doing all top 10 this year, so we're more inclusive with everybody, not just the top 5. And we're working really hard on it.
We're really hoping a lot of people dress up this year for dress up days. We tried our hardest to involve a lot of different areas for people to dress up, so it'll be fun to see what people come up with.
Good job. All right, thanks. We're almost done too. If it's getting late and you want to go home to homework or something, feel free to leave. But we are on the home stretch, so yeah, we get it. So
Last night was our
We were up
last
till
night.
2:30 last night.
please go home. Well, maybe go to sleep when you get home. Hopefully it won't be late. Thanks, girls.
We were busy waking up the Royals all this week.
Okay, activities. Community ed. Oh, Chris.
That's me already.
That was great timing.
Good timing. Oh,
If you don't mind,
To hold the mic.
you sit, yeah,
okay.
Oh, yeah.
any mic
Sorry,
will do, really.
falling down.
I'll bring it back there.
Might not be on, make sure it's on. There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
First of all, we ended up getting beat down there in the gym tonight, to play volleyball, against Little Falls, and we got beaten 3, so things didn't really go our way, but I know some of you guys probably wanted an update, so. Hall of Fame induction, was held September 4th during our home football game. John McBroom and Nathan Kirshner were inducted that night. So that was a fun night. We had a good turnout. K&R Meats came in and catered the event. We heard a lot of positives moving forward with this possibly continuing at the football game. So that was a fun night. Booster Club also held their annual tailgate party, so they were serving hot dogs and stuff like that. In my board report, I was asking for approval for the Form A resolution of school board supporting the application. We've done this in the past. I just need a signature from a couple of you up there, and then I can get that turned in.
Yep.
I was also asking for approval to dissolve the Cambridge Isanti Co-op. After listening to some parents and getting some more information just this week, I'd like to kind of hold off on that, give it some more thought, talk about it a little bit. I guess talking to the parents afterwards down at the volleyball game, they're really passionate about letting the girls finish their junior and senior year down there, and I'm okay with that. I think that's a win-win for both of us. I did talk to the AD. I've talked to him several times over in Pine City. He is fine with us holding off. Rush City is going to do the same thing because they have 2 older girls that want to finish their career with Moose Lake. So I think that's a good idea, but moving forward, I would like to recommend that we continue the talks with Pine City. The younger ones want to go there. They don't want to travel down to Cambridge. So I'm not sure what your thoughts are.
Consensus of the board tonight was to move to, we did not approve it tonight, but we are going to move forward with the talks, and good chance that, yes, we can delay it a year,
Right.
but keep Pine City in the loop, or make sure our intentions are known to them, that
Right.
we will be
Yep.
joining them.
Yep, and that's with Hinkley and Rush City. Or actually, Rush City is going to go co-op with them when they start up next year.
Mhm.
So,
So there may not be need to take any action this year on anything other than to convey to Pine City that our intentions are.
And I was thinking, we had till October of this year to decide. I think I might wanna just wait on that as well and see how this next year goes with this new coach. Maybe they're gonna have a change of heart and say,
Okay.
you know what, this is a different program down here, maybe we should keep it there.
Well, we have a month
Mhm.
to decide if we need to take any action or not, but it was tabled tonight, so.
Okay, perfect. All right, that's what I've got. I've just listed some classes that we've had in community ed. They've been going really good. Some more coming up that are full and have waiting lists, so. Any questions?
Any questions for Chris?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening. Buildings and grounds, we have the auditorium dehumidification project is still kind of going. It's a snail's pace right now. We made a decision that we're not gonna commission and start that up until next spring because we would lose some warranty. It's only warranted for 12 months, and tomorrow's coronation is high at 59, so I don't think we need it. So we're gonna delay that for next spring, but otherwise, the electrician should be here tomorrow to show everything up, and then we'll just kind of sit on that for the winter. I know Mr. Schultz has some tennis court parking lot things to talk about. I was up there on Tuesday. They have the parking lot striped and all ready to go. And the post guys were there digging and putting the posts in. And then they said their wire guys, which are their fencing guys, are up in Masabi finishing their big project up at that school. So as soon as they're done with that, they're going to come and start doing our fencing for that. Transportation, nothing real. We had a pretty good year. We had a couple hiccups with little itty bitties getting on the wrong bus or not getting dropped off as they don't recognize their sorry. Their drop-off. We got that all ironed out. One decision made in the last couple of weeks is a random UA testing with our drivers. We used to have 3 different companies that handled it. We have a company that comes and collects, that goes to a lab, and then that lab sends it results to another company, and then they send us emails. So we have a chain of command issue, and so I did some research, and we're just going to drop all that and have one company do it all, and we're actually going to save some money doing that way, and it's just going to help district office and all that recording for just having one-stop shop. So other than that, if you have any questions, let me know.
Just a quick question. Does anybody do walkabouts up at Trailview at the end of the day? I happened to go by the gazebo at 7:30 a couple nights ago, and I turned the water off. It was just running at full blast out of the hose that had obviously gotten left on. And after all the rain, I'm like, we don't need any more water running into the holding. But it was just coming full blast.
Yeah, our
out of that
outside
hose.
custodian, Mr. Mork, he leaves quite early in the afternoon for his day, so he's done about 2 o'clock. I'd have no idea who's
First
back
time
there
I've ever
running out.
seen it,
when-
but I
when
heard
our-
something and I looked over and yeah,
We had the same issue with football the other night. Our track and the football field was kind of flooded on the Maple Avenue side, and the little kids, when they had the 4th, 5th, 6th grade, they left the water on all night. So I
Plus
talked
we
to
pay
the
for
coach
water,
and
right?
let him know, but yeah, we don't have anybody that goes out there at 7 o'clock at night to check, but.
thankfully it doesn't happen
Yeah.
much. But. Okay, thanks, Chip. Principals update, high school.
Wanted to thank Mr. Lindstrom. He brought the idea to the 7th grade advisory of reading the book I'm Not Scared, I'm Prepared, which was laying a foundation for our new ALICE procedures here at the high school. That was followed by a video that showed some of the foundations of the ALICE when it comes to the barricading. And they were able to practice the enhanced lockdown, the barricading in the classrooms, as well as did an evacuation to our rally point, which is the water tower in our parking lot. And that all went very well, very quick and timely, and I appreciate all the help from the staff members to pull that off. And then wanted to give an update at the bottom there, foreign exchange students. We now have 8 foreign exchange students. We've had 2 more join us. One young lady from Spain, and then the young lady from Thailand is now with us here at Mora High School. So we have 8 foreign exchange students, 7 young gals and 1 guy.
That's nice. Triple what we had last year. Okay, thanks, Nick. Elementary.
The elementary kicked off our fun run on Wednesday, so
There will be a lot of buzz in the school for the next 10 to 12 days. Mrs. Lennox and Lane have done an awesome job coordinating that, and Mr. Ballmer helped with the introduction on Wednesday, so we're excited to get that going.
What he's not telling you is how much fun he's having with the planning, as well as the staff. It's a lot of fun for everybody. We also are having some, I think I touched on this last time, some parenting with love and logic classes. We started last Monday. We had 44 adults and 40 kids come, and I had 7 staff members helping out, so it was a nice turnout. We have 2 more, one's on the 10th of October, and the next one's the third one's the 21st of October, and everyone signed up, and I think even more signed up for those 2. So that's been a big parent involvement success, and that's through Title I funding. So Title I funds that whole event.
If you remember last month, we talked about the Strength Finders 2.0 that Brenda and I did. We did that last week with our staff, and it was very valuable. There were 4 themes: executing, influencing, relationship building, and strategic thinking. And they're all color coordinated. And we did a spreadsheet with all of our staff on there, and you could probably imagine which one was the dominant theme there. The relationship building at the elementary was very strong. But we took some time through the staff meeting, broke them into their common themes, talked about their grade levels. Brenda had a great plan for it, and just a lot of positive feedback.
That was well received. At the end of the staff meeting, people didn't want to leave, which is always a good thing. So, it's just good information. It's good insight. It's good insight on the teams that you work with and how you complement each other. And we have our reading night coming up. It's October 28th from 5 to 7. We have more things to give away. That's been a big hit with the families the last 2 years. We do it at the end, and nobody wants to leave. And so this year we're doing 4 bikes, 2 intermediate. Actually it's not 4 bikes. It's 2 bikes and 2 scooters. I don't know why it says that. So the scooters are for the primary, so that'll be a lot of fun. The kids always really like that.
That it? Thank you. All right. Superintendent's update.
I mentioned the review and comment has been, I had followed up and checked on that, and when I spoke with Chris Kubish, he said that it had been reviewed at his level and had been sent to the commissioner's desk, and on, I believe it was Tuesday morning, I was notified that the commissioner had signed it, and we would be getting a hard copy. So we got the hard copy today, and I did send out the digital copy to you as well. And so that summary is there. We have a positive review and comment. And so we'll be moving forward with all of the various components for our referendum. I did mention the, I guess, did you have any questions about the review and comment? We do need to publish this in the paper. What is it, not less than 20 and not more than 60 days or something like that. Kelly will be helping me with that kind of stuff, and so we'll get all of those requirements met. I did mention the project. Chip had more updated information than I did. The last I had heard, the fencing guys were coming in already, but they must have gotten hung up someplace. And with that, the parking lot will be ready to go, but the tennis court it has to sit for a month, I believe, before it can be sealed.
They're actually going to put the coating on next spring, and we'll have to store all that material, but we're working on that.
Yep, so that'll be all there, set up and ready to go. We'll seal it in the spring and get it striped, and it'll be ready for boys tennis, I believe, is in the spring. Bob got to hear from the other superintendents about the EDIAM security piece that is taking place. That's kind of a royal pain right now, and it just had to start out on September 20th, which was our first day for absentee balloting in the district office, as well as the day that I was at a legal conference down that I was registered for with RASW. The security that we have had and the reports that we have, the system was changed, and if you remember, annually I'm recognized as the individual official with authority. I'm the only one that can grant access to those security reports, as well as not just the access, but also the reporting. In many cases, that information is put on by other individuals, and then I have to do the final approval. So right now, it's kind of a pain. I got a frantic plea from Darcy, who was putting together some stuff for Brenda for her presentation tonight, that there was one that I didn't see. And so, and the problem with it is it's not just all taking place right now and it all has to be done. It's 3 phases. So the first half is being done, started September 20th, and then there's October 4th, and then there's October 16th. And the biggest ones, the finance pieces, get rolled on October 16th. So I've had to go in for a number of employees so that they have access. It's a pain, just believe me. The annual assurance of compliance report, that's one of those reports, and that is that I have to go in each year and verify all of the required components, such as our sexual harassment policy is up to date and is being implemented, and staff is being notified. And so Kelly has access to that as well, and so she'll be checking and verifying each of those components as we go through the process. There's the federal requirements as well as the state requirements. And then we do it this time of the year so that if any of those policies need to be updated, we'll bring those to you at the October board meeting for board approval. If not, then I'll just go ahead and sign off on it. I think last year we submitted it on October 31st, which was right after the October board meeting. We're continuing to meet with our admin Mora teachers group. We are fairly well along with the language is mostly complete. We have a few pieces there, and the financial component is currently being worked on, and we are making progress with that as well. So I'm hopeful that we'll be meeting again here in the next week or two, and that we'll be even one step closer, if not even close enough to have a tentative agreement. Our school district insurance is changing over to the public employee insurance pool. That is going to be a significant change for our employees, and that does take place on October 1st. I believe everybody has their forms all in and signed, and payroll is working through that process so that we start the proper deductions. And then with that, PEEP does not meet our bid docs, and so we've been with Medica recently. And what PEEP does is they come in with their set of requirements, and that's all the choice we have. Now what PEEP does, and this is one thing I didn't really understand, is they are not an insurance company. We actually deal through, we have the choices of Blue Cross Blue Shield, Health Partners, and Preferred One. And so what PEEP does is they negotiate the rates, but they also set those specifications for those various insurance pieces. So each of our staff members have all had to pick the insurance company they want to deal with, and then as well as identify their primary clinic, which are 2 of the main components. But we'll work our way through that. We do have some employees that have some experience with that that are assisting others as we work through that process. And then last Friday, I was down at the RASW legal conference, and as well as our principals, I believe, are scheduled in the next month or so to attend legal conferences so we can get some of the most current opinions on the various components we have to deal with. And some of the things that were talked about specifically were the liability for off-campus travel, religion and difficult times, emerging Title IX discrimination suits, as well as staff discipline and student discipline in both the regular and special education fields. So if you have any questions on any of those things, I'd be happy to answer it. Otherwise, that's my report.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? So, correspondence will be coming around. Any other business? All right. Second open forum. Last chance. Would somebody like to address the board at this time? And seeing none, need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.